The water in Hell's Canyon runs green and quiet between walls that climb almost 8,000 feet. The deepest gorge on the continent, deeper than the Grand Canyon. All summer, people run it in jet boats and laugh over the engine noise, and they have no idea what is beneath the hull. 10 predators still live in this river and along its walls. This is not a ranking of the deadliest. It is a ranking of the ones you were trained not to see. And the one at number 1 has been down there since before the dams, before the roads, before the maps had names for any of this. Longer than your boat, older than anyone alive. Finning in the black while you pass over the top of it. Number 10. The mountain lion. Start with the one you half believe in. Everyone from this country has a story, and almost none of them have a photograph, because a cougar that lets you take its picture is a cougar that made a mistake. This canyon holds some of the densest big cat country left in the West. A large male measures close to 8 feet from his nose to the tip of his tail, longer than most men are tall, and carries 150 pounds of muscle built for one thing, which is arriving before you know anything is wrong. He kills deer larger than himself. He crosses ridgelines you would need a full day to climb. He swims the river when the river is in his way. A single male patrols a range larger than some cities, drifting for miles between the Idaho Rim Rock and the Oregon Rim, and a female raising kittens back in the talus will kill a deer roughly once a week to keep them fed. All of that happens in the same square miles you drove through to reach the boat launch. You just never collect the evidence. Here is why you do not see him. It is not that the lions left. The state calls them common. It is that people are certain they were shot out of this country 100 years ago. And certainty is the best camouflage there is. You are not scanning the rim rock for something that, in your mind, no longer exists. So it watches you fish, and it lets you leave, and you drive home believing you spent the day alone. The tracks it left in the sand at dawn were washed out by the wake of your own boat before you ever saw them. That is the whole trick of this animal. It is not rare. It is not gone. It is simply better than you at being unseen, and it has been practicing that particular skill for a very long time. You did not spend 1 minute of that day alone. Number 9. The black bear. They are moving back into ground people think of as theirs, not the postcard wilderness. The draws above the boat launches, the brushy side canyons, the orchard edges, and the campground margins where the huckleberries come in. A big male black bear pushes past 300 pounds, heavier than any person watching this. People file the black bear under harmless, a shy shape that eats berries and runs from noise, and mostly that is true. But it is a predator when it wants to be. It takes fawns in the spring, when the does hide them in the tall grass, and a bear can walk a hillside nose down and simply find them. It takes elk calves in their first weeks. It stands in the shallows and pins spawning fish with a paw, the same as its ancestors did before there was anyone here to be surprised by it. A black bear can run faster than any sprinter alive, climb a cliff face faster than you can climb a ladder, and smell food, or fear, from more than a mile off. The gentle shape ambling through the huckleberries is carrying all of that under the fur. The denial with the bear is comfort. We assume the timid ones keep to the real backcountry, far from where we spread a blanket. So we picnic in the exact seam of habitat a bear crossed at first light, and we read the quiet as emptiness. The quiet is not emptiness. The quiet is an animal that heard your car doors from half a mile off and decided to wait you out in the shade. If you are finding this one worth your time, take a second to subscribe, because these canyon stories only reach you if the channel is in your feed when the next one drops. Number 8. The rattlesnake. Hell's Canyon is snake country in the oldest sense of the phrase. When the sun hits the talus and the rim rock in the afternoon, the northern Pacific rattlesnake comes up to warm itself on the same flat stones people use as handholds and footholds on the way down to the water. 2 to 4 feet of patient, heat-seeking predator, keyed to the exact rocks you reach for without looking. And here's the thing people get wrong, the belief that gets them bitten. We are taught that the rattlesnake warns you, that it rattles, that it gives you your chance to step back. Sometimes it does. Often it does not. A snake that is cold or resting, or that simply decides stillness is safer than sound, will let you pass within inches and never make a noise, because rattling costs energy and draws hogs, and staying invisible has kept its kind alive far longer than any warning ever could. There is another thing the movies got wrong. A rattlesnake can strike about half its own body length in a fraction of a second, faster than you can pull your hand back once your eyes have finally found it, which means that by the time you see the one on the ledge, the decision was never yours to make. It was always the snake's, and most of the time the snake decides you are too large to eat and not worth the venom and simply lets you go. You have almost certainly walked past more of them than you will ever know. Not one of them owed you a sound. Number 7. The northern pikeminnow. This is the only fish in this river with a price on its head, and the state will pay you to kill it. The northern pikeminnow is native, a big drab minnow that gets to around 2 feet, and on any other list, it would be nobody's idea of a predator. But it eats young salmon by the millions as they run for the sea. And so, since 1991, there has been a bounty. The Bonneville Power Administration funds it, to make up for what the dams did to the salmon. Anglers register each day, catch pike minnow from the mouth of the Snake all the way up to Hell's Canyon Dam, and get paid by the fish. A few dollars each to start and up to $10 a piece once you have caught enough, with specially tagged fish worth as much as $500 on their own. The old name for it was squawfish, and for decades nobody wanted it. Now there is a mobile app for the bounty. In more than 30 years, anglers have pulled nearly 6 million pike minnow out of these two rivers, and biologists estimate that has cut the number of young salmon eaten by up to 40%. One angler in a single summer earned about $164,000, catching a fish most people have never heard of. The reason you never counted it as a predator is the reason it is so effective at being one. We sort fish into game and trash, trophy, and junk, and once a thing is labeled junk, we stop looking at what it does. Nobody makes a nature documentary about the pike minnow, and while nobody is looking, it sits in the current below the dams and eats the future of the river, one silver smolt at a time. By the way, I would like to know where you're watching this from tonight. Drop your state or country in the comments. It always surprises me how far these canyon stories travel. Number 6. The golden eagle. Look up. That is the largest bird of prey on the continent, and its wings, fully spread, reach wider than you stand tall. We have spent so long treating the eagle as a symbol, a shape on a flag, a thing that means freedom, that we have almost entirely forgotten it as a working killer. The golden eagle's talons close with something like 440 pounds of pressure per square inch, roughly 15 times the grip of a human hand. Its eyesight is several times sharper than yours, sharp enough to pick a rabbit out of the sage from more than a mile away, and in a dive it can fall out of the sky at well over 150 miles an hour. It hunts the open rim rock of this canyon for rabbits and marmots and ground squirrels. Yes, it also, and this is documented, takes deer fawns, takes lambs, and in the open country of the West has killed pronghorn many times its own weight, striking from above and clamping down on the spine. Biologists have recorded golden eagles killing and eating more than 400 different kinds of animal across their range. Some individuals learn, over a life that can span 30 years, to specialize in prey far larger than themselves, and the ones nesting on these canyon cliffs are among the birds that have been studied doing exactly that. The denial here is a kind of flattery. We admire the eagle so completely that we cannot picture it doing the one thing it is built to do. We see majesty and stop there. But the animal riding the thermals over the Seven Devils is not thinking about your flag. It is reading the ground with eyesight several times sharper than yours. And it is deciding, with total indifference to how beautiful you find it, what on the slope below is small enough and slow enough to die. Everything up to here you could walk right past and never know it clocked you. From this point down, they get bigger, stranger, and far harder to live beside. Number 5. The gray wolf. For most of the last century, there were none. They were trapped and shot and poisoned out of this entire country, gone so completely that a generation grew up certain the howl was a thing of the past. Then, in the winters of 1995 and 96, 35 wolves were caught in the Canadian Rockies, crated, and moved by truck and helicopter and plane into central Idaho, released into the wild heart of the Salmon River drainage, which feeds the snake. The Nez Perce tribe led the work on the ground for more than a decade. In their language, the animal is Himian. It came home. A big male runs 120 pounds and stretches, nose to tail, about as long as you are tall. They hunt the same elk and deer and bighorn that draw every other predator on this list to the water, running prey in relays across country that would break a person in an afternoon. From that founding handful of 35 animals, wolves spread across the mountains and down into the canyon country, and across the river into Oregon, faster than almost anyone predicted. And still, the loudest thing about the wolf here is the insistence that it is not really here. It has become an argument more than an animal, something people deny for reasons that have nothing to do with tracks in the mud. But the packs do not care what their argument concludes. They are denning in drainages that empty into this river, and on the right cold night, the sound comes up off the water and rolls between walls 1.5 miles high, and there is no mistaking it for anything else. Number 4, the Pacific lamprey. This one is not bigger than you. It is older than almost everything. The Pacific lamprey is a living fossil, a jawless, boneless creature whose lineage goes back more than 400 million years, older than the dinosaurs, older than trees, a survivor of at least 4 separate mass extinctions that erased most of the life on this planet. It has no scales, no bones, and no jaw. Instead of a skeleton, it has cartilage, and instead of a mouth, it has a round disc lined with rings of teeth. Its life is stranger than almost anything else in this river. It begins as a blind, eyeless larva buried in the stream sediment, filter feeding in the dark for years, quietly cleaning the riverbed like the oldest janitor on Earth. Then it changes, grows eyes and teeth, and runs to the ocean where it fastens onto other fish and onto marine mammals, and drinks their blood without usually killing them. Then it turns and climbs back up the rivers of its birth to spawn and die, and one of those rivers is the snake. We look at it and see something slimy and ancient and vaguely disgusting, an eel we would rather not touch, and we sort it, like the pikeminnow, into the pile of things that do not matter. It matters. It fed this basin's people and its wildlife for longer than we can truly imagine, and it is quietly disappearing, because it cannot climb the fish ladders the dams built for salmon, and it has been all but locked out of the upper snake. The Nez Perce are hatching them now, trying to carry a 400-million-year-old survivor back over concrete that stopped it in a single human lifetime. You are looking at one of the oldest kinds of animal on Earth, and you almost stepped on it. 3 left. This is where the canyon stops feeling like a postcard. Number 3, the grizzly bear. I have to be honest about the geography because it matters. There are no grizzlies in Hell's Canyon. They were driven out of this stretch of the West long ago, but this is the Snake River. All of it, more than 1,000 miles of it, and the snake is born hundreds of miles upstream, in the high cold country of western Wyoming, in the shadow of the Tetons at the edge of Yellowstone. And up there, where the same river is still a clear mountain stream you could step across, the grizzly never left. It fishes those banks. It digs the meadows the meltwater feeds. The snake runs more than 1,000 miles from that source down to where it finally meets the Columbia. And the grizzly country is only the first stretch of it, the cold beginning. Most people never connect to the warm green canyon at the other end. A big male grizzly can pass 600 pounds. Standing on its hind legs, it is taller than a doorway, heavier than 3 grown men stacked together, and faster over short ground than a horse. It can flip a boulder that 2 people could not budge just to get at the insects underneath, and it can smell a carcass from miles downwind. What holds people back from seeing it is a map in the head, the one that files the grizzly under real wilderness. Somewhere far away and set apart, not connected to the tamed river we float and fish downstream. But it is the same water. Follow the snake far enough toward its source and the postcard runs out, and the biggest land predator on the continent is standing in the shallows where the river you know began. Number 2, the June hogs. There used to be salmon in this river as large as a small person. They were called June hogs, the great summer run Chinook, and by the old accounts the biggest of them reached 100 pounds and more, thick from back to belly, powering more than 1,000 miles up the Columbia and into the Snake, and beyond to spawn in water they had left years before as fingerlings. For thousands of years, the tribes of this basin took them at the Great Falls, standing on wooden platforms built out over the whitewater and dipping the fish out by hand as they leapt, 60-pounders, 70-pounders, 100-pounders, thrown up onto the banks. It was one of the richest fisheries on the continent, and the June hogs were its kings. Scientists now argue about whether they were truly a separate race of giants or simply the largest members of many runs, and the honest answer is that nobody can be certain, because they were mostly gone before anyone thought to study them properly. Overfishing thinned the biggest ones out by the early 1900s, cutting their average size by as much as half in a couple of decades. Then the dams went up, some of them without any way for a fish to pass at all, and that finished the job. Today, a Chinook in this system averages 10 to 20 pounds. The 100-pound fish is not rare anymore. It is extinct in every practical sense, a size the river no longer produces. Snake River Spring and Summer Chinook are federally listed as threatened, hanging on. And the danger in how we talk about them is the past tense, the way we file the June hogs undergone and lower our eyes. Because a few descendants of those runs still fight their way up into the salmon in the Clearwater every year. Smaller, fewer, but still coming, still doing the impossible thing, and almost nobody is standing on the bank to watch them do it. The same concrete that ended the giants is the reason the next animal on this list is the size it is. Number 1. The white sturgeon. Here's the ghost under your boat. The white sturgeon is the largest freshwater fish in North America, and its kind has been on this earth for something like 200 million years. A design so old it shared the rivers with dinosaurs and never needed a change. Think about that number for a moment. 200 million years. This animal's design was already ancient when the first flowers bloomed, already ancient when the dinosaurs were still walking, and it has come through everything since almost unchanged because it got the shape right the first time. It wears rows of bony plates instead of scales, armor down each side of a body built like a torpedo. It has a soft, downturned mouth hung with whisker-like barbels that it drags along the riverbed, feeling for food and water so deep and dark that light never reaches it. Make no mistake, it is a predator down there, taking fish and vacuuming up salmon eggs by the thousand. The largest white sturgeon ever recorded, down on the coast, weighed close to 1,400 pounds, and there are old reports of ones even larger. In the Hell's Canyon reach of the Snake, biologists from Idaho's agencies, the Power Company, and the Nez Perce tribe have handled more than 4,000 of these fish over 30-some years. In all that time, fewer than 10 have topped 10 feet. The largest they ever measured ran 10 feet 8 inches and bottomed out a 500-pound scale. A sturgeon that has lived its whole life in this river can be well over 100 years old. And then the dams came. When the Hell's Canyon complex closed in the 1960s, and the lower Snake dams in the 1970s, they sealed this population into a single 137-mile stretch of river. The fish that once ran all the way to the Columbia, and maybe to the sea, cannot leave. No sturgeon has ever been seen climbing the fish ladder to escape upstream. There is no way out and no way home. So they stayed in that one long pool between the walls, and with nowhere to go and a century of time, they did the only thing left to do. They kept growing. A sturgeon that has spent its whole life in this river, rather than in the slower water of a reservoir, is likely more than 100 years old. Since 1971, it has been catch and release only. You cannot keep one. You are not meant to. You are meant to let it go back down into the dark and get older. Which means the 9-foot animal in the photograph, the one held at the surface for a few seconds between two men on a boat before it rolls and slides back down into the green, was almost certainly alive before either of those men was born, and will almost certainly be alive after they are gone. It has felt the hulls pass over it for a century. It has never once been seen by the thousands of people who floated directly above it, laughing, sunburned, certain the river was just a river. So here's what this list is really about. Not fear. None of these animals is hunting you. The mountain lion lets you leave. The eagle is reading the slope for something smaller. The sturgeon has no idea you exist. What this list is about is a gap. The distance between how tame a place has been made to look and how much intact, ancient, dangerous life is still moving through it right now. Unseen, because a settled place quietly trains the people in it to stop seeing what shares the ground. The wolf is denning up a side canyon. The grizzly is standing in the river's cold beginning, and the oldest of them all is finning in the dark beneath the boats, exactly where it has always been, patient in a way nothing with a human lifespan can understand. Still down there, still growing, still waiting. If this pulled you in, YouTube already lined up the next one for you. It is on your screen now, and I think you're going to want it.